At his nursing home birthday party, a spry old man was shuffling around with a grin, asking everyone, "Guess how old I am? Go on, guess." One resident said, "I don't know. 81? 82? Nope, I'm 95, he said proudly, laughing to himself. A little later, he spotted an old woman sitting quietly in the hallway. He walked up to her and said, "Hey, guess how old I am?" Without a word, she unzipped his pants, reached in, felt around thoughtfully for a few seconds, and said, "I'd say you're about 95. He was stunned. "Wow, that's amazing. How could you possibly know that?" She shrugged. "I heard you tell that other guy." An old man wrote a letter to his son who was serving time behind bars. "Son, I'm getting too old to work the land alone. This year I don't think I'll be able to plant the vegetables. I just don't have the strength to dig the soil anymore. If only you were here." A few days later, the father received a surprising reply. "Dad, please don't touch the garden. That's where I hid something important before I got caught." Within 24 hours, local authorities showed up and dug up the entire field, searching high and low. But they found nothing. The next week, the father got another letter from his son. "Well, Dad, that's the best help I could give you from prison. Now the land is ready. Go ahead and plant the vegetables." Sometimes love looks like effort, and sometimes it looks like strategy. A boy tells his father, "Dad, I have such a strong desire to live forever. What should I do?" The dad responds, "Get married." Boy, "Really? Does that make you live forever?" Dad, "No. It'll make that desire go away." He storms into the kitchen and announces to his wife, "From now on, I'm the man of this house, and my word is law. You will prepare me a gourmet dinner tonight, followed by a delicious dessert. After I've eaten, you'll come upstairs with me and we'll have the kind of sex I want. Afterwards, you'll draw me a hot bath so I can relax. You'll wash my back, towel me dry, and bring me my robe. Then you'll massage my feet and hands. And tomorrow, guess who's going to dress me and comb my hair?" His wife looks at him calmly and says, "The funeral director would be my first guess." A man walks into the police station and asks to speak with the burglar who broke into his house the night before. The desk sergeant raises an eyebrow and says, "You'll get your chance in court, sir." No, the man insists. "I don't want to press charges. I just want to know how he got into the house without waking my wife." He leans in and says, "I've been trying to do that for years." Two men waiting at the pearly gates strike up a conversation. "How'd you die?" the first man asks the second. "I froze to death," says the second. "That's awful," says the first man. "How does it feel to freeze to death?" "It's very uncomfortable at first," says the second man. "You get the shakes, and you get pains in all your fingers and toes, but eventually it's a very calm way to go. You get numb, and you kind of drift off as if you're sleeping. How about you? How did you die?" "I had a heart attack," says the first man. "You see, I knew my wife was cheating on me. So one day I showed up at home unexpectedly. I ran up to the bedroom and found her alone, knitting. I ran down to the basement, but no one was hiding there either. I ran up to the second floor, but no one was hiding there either. I ran as fast as I could to the attic, and just as I got there, I had a massive heart attack and died." The second man shakes his head. "That's so ironic," he says. "What do you mean?" asks the first man. "If you had only stopped to look in the freezer, we'd both still be alive." One day, little Johnny walks into his parents' bedroom and catches them in the middle of the act. "Hey, Dad!" Johnny shouts. "What are you doing?" His dad, startled, tries to play it cool. I'm filling your mother's gas tank, son." Johnny pauses, tilts his head, and says, "Oh, yeah? Well, you might want to get a model with better mileage. The milkman filled her up this morning." A librarian is jolted awake in the middle of the night by the ringing phone. Groggy and annoyed, he answers, "Hello?" A man's voice on the line asks urgently, "What time does the library open?" The librarian rubs his eyes and snaps, "It opens at 9 a.m. Why are you calling me at 2 in the morning to ask that?" There's a pause on the line. "Not until 9?" the man says, sounding genuinely disappointed. The librarian, now irritated, barks, "That's right! Not until 9! You can't get in before that, so you'll just have to wait." The man sighs heavily and says, "Who said I wanted to get in? I want to get out." A librarian is jolted awake in the middle of the night by the ringing phone. Groggy and annoyed, he answers, "Hello?" A man's voice on the line asks urgently, "What time does the library open?" The librarian rubs his eyes and snaps, "It opens at 9 a.m. Why are you calling me at 2 in the morning to ask that?" There's a pause on the line. "Not until 9? the man says, sounding genuinely disappointed. The librarian, now irritated, barks, "That's right! Not until 9! You can't get in before that, so you'll just have to wait." The man sighs heavily and says, "Who said I wanted to get in? I want to get out." At her annual checkup, 82-year-old Edna sat across from her brand-new doctor, a fresh-faced young man straight out of medical school. "Mrs. Edna," he said, reviewing her file, "I see here you've been prescribed birth control pills?" He raised an eyebrow. Edna smiled sweetly. "Oh, yes, I take one every day before bed." The doctor blinked. "Ma'am, there's nothing in these pills that would help you sleep." She leaned in, lowered her voice, and said with a wink, "Oh, honey, I don't take them for me. I crush one up and stir it into my 17-year-old granddaughter's orange juice every morning." She patted his hand gently. "Now that, young man, helps me sleep just fine at night." A married man, Patty, was visiting his secret girlfriend when she requested he shave his beard. "Oh, Patty, I like your beard, but I would really like to see your handsome face." She said. Patty replied, "My wife loves this beard. I couldn't possibly do it. She would kill me." "Oh, please," the girlfriend asked again in a little voice. "Really, I can't," he replies. "My wife loves this beard," the girlfriend asks once more time, and he sighs and finally gives in. That night, Patty crawls into bed with his wife while she was sleeping. The wife is awakened somewhat, feels his face, and says, "Oh, Michael, you shouldn't be here. My husband will be home soon." The teacher is going over vocabulary with her class. "Who can tell me what the word average means?" she asks. Little Johnny's hand shoots up immediately. The teacher sighs. "All right, Johnny. Let's hear it. What do you think average means?" Johnny grins. "It's an animal, miss." The teacher shakes her head. "No, Johnny, that's not correct. But why on earth would you think that?" Johnny replies, "Well, miss, I heard my mom telling Mary next door that she gets a ride on average once a week." A young man burst into the confessional in tears. "Forgive me, Father. I've fallen into temptation." Priest, "Take a deep breath, my child. What happened?" Young man, "First, I stayed late at the library. The rain poured, and I had to wait with the librarian. One thing led to another, and I slipped." Priest, softly, "That's a sin, but you can atone. Say 5 Hail Marys." The young man dabbed his eyes, but continued. "Then an elderly neighbor asked for computer help. Storm clouds rolled in. I waited out the downpour, and I slipped again." The priest sighed. "Add 10 more Hail Marys and keep your heart strong." Through fresh tears, the man whispered, "Yesterday at the barber shop, I was his last customer. The skies opened up. I waited, and, Father, I slipped once more." The priest looked toward the window, saw dark clouds gathering, and stood up. "My son," he said, handing back the screen divider, "I think you'd better get out of here before it starts raining." A breakup letter that took a wild turn. Dear wife, I'm writing this to let you know I'm leaving you. For good. After 7 years of marriage, I've had enough. These past 2 weeks were the tipping point. You didn't notice my new haircut. You barely acknowledged the steak dinner I made, your so-called favorite. You didn't even say a word about the silk boxers I wore just for you. You barely talked to me. We haven't connected in ages, emotionally or otherwise. And then today, I found out from your boss that you quit your job. No warning, no discussion. So I'm done. I'm out. Please don't try to find me. Carla and I are starting fresh in West Virginia. Enjoy your life. Your ex-husband. P.S. She always understood me better anyway. Dear ex-husband. Well, thank you for the laugh. I needed that. First, you did get a haircut. I didn't say anything because you looked like a confused poodle. As for dinner, you burnt the steak again, and I stopped eating red meat 6 years ago, remember? And the silk boxers? The tag was still on them, $50. Odd, since Carla borrowed that exact amount from me that morning. But hey, I figured you'd finally learn to treat yourself. Now, about me quitting my job. I hit the lottery. $10 million. I was planning a surprise vacation for us, 2 tickets to Jamaica. But clearly, the universe saved me a ticket. My lawyer says your letter means you waived any claim to my winnings. So enjoy West Virginia. And Carla. Oh, and by the way, ask her what her name was before 2014. Your very free and very rich ex-wife. A gentle elderly woman called the hospital front desk and asked sweetly, "Hi, dear. Could someone please tell me how a patient is doing?" The receptionist responded warmly, "Of course. I'll need the patient's name and room number, please." With a shaky voice, the woman replied, "Margaret Ellis, room 408. "One moment," the receptionist said cheerfully. "Let me check with the nurses' station for you." After a short pause, she came back on the line. "Good news. Margaret is doing just fine. Her vitals are steady. She ate lunch, and the doctor is planning to discharge her tomorrow morning." There was a long sigh of relief on the other end. "Oh, thank heavens," the woman said. "You have no idea how much that means to me. Thank you so much." The receptionist, touched by her gratitude, asked, "Is Margaret your sister or a close friend?" The woman chuckled softly. "Actually, I am Margaret Ellis. I'm just tired of nobody telling me anything around here." I was at the pharmacy, waiting in line, when I glanced at the name tag of the man behind the counter. Something about the name tugged at my memory. It hit me. I had a huge crush on a boy with that exact name in high school over 30 years ago. He was tall, confident, played guitar in a garage band. I used to write his name in the margins of my notebook like a secret I hoped life would one day reveal. So naturally, I took a good look at the man standing there, and I thought, nah, can't be him. This guy was bald, had reading glasses halfway down his nose, and looked like he'd lost a battle or two with gravity. Still, curiosity won. "Excuse me," I said, smiling. "Did you go to Jefferson High?" "I sure did," he replied cheerfully. "What year did you graduate?" "Class of '89, you?" I grinned. "Same class. We were classmates." He leaned in, stared at me for a second, and then asked, dead serious, "Wow. Were you one of our teachers?" I haven't emotionally recovered, but I did go home and order wrinkle cream, a new pair of jeans, and a tinted moisturizer. The birthday surprise that went up in smoke. It all started innocently enough during lunch. 3 hearty servings of beans. I knew better, but hey, they were too good to resist. Later that evening, I came home to find my husband grinning from ear to ear. "Got a surprise for you tonight," he announced, eyes sparkling. Curious and excited, I let him lead me by the hand, blindfold me, and guide me to my chair at the dinner table. I was bubbling with anticipation. Just as he was about to lift the blindfold, his phone rang. "Promise me you won't peek while I'm on the call," he said, slipping out of the room. I nodded, but inside, panic was setting in. Those beans? Yeah, they were making their presence known, and fast. My stomach churned like a stormy ocean, and I fought with every ounce of willpower to keep the chaos contained. But physics? Physics doesn't care about birthdays. Seizing the moment while the coast was clear, I let loose. It was loud, so loud it could have registered on the Richter scale. And the smell? Think toxic waste dump meets skunk apocalypse. Desperately, I grabbed my napkin and flapped it like a flag, hoping to clear the air or at least pretend I was trying. Relieved by the silence, I couldn't resist unleashing a few more, each one worse than the last. Freedom never smelled so bad. Minutes later, I heard my husband's footsteps approaching. Time was up. Trying to look innocent and composed, I sat back with a smile as he returned. "Did you peek?" he asked. "Not a chance," I said, trying not to cough. He removed the blindfold, and there they were. 12 guests, faces twisted in horror, fingers pinching noses, desperately waving their hands in front of their faces. In perfect, strained unison, they forced out a shaky, "Happy birthday!" I swear if I had vanished right then, nobody would have blamed me. The other day at the diner, I overheard an elderly couple sitting in the booth next to me. The husband leaned over and said with a cheeky grin, "Do you remember the first time we made love? Behind that old bar on Maple Street?" The wife blushed and nodded. "Of course I do. You pushed me up against the fence and we nearly got caught." He chuckled. "How about a little walk down memory lane?" She laughed, rolled her eyes, and said, "Why not? I've got my cane, you bring your charm." I couldn't help but follow behind them at a distance, curiosity winning over manners. They shuffled slowly, holding hands, supporting each other like old trees leaning into the wind. Eventually, they reached the back of the same bar from decades ago. She lifted her dress, he dropped his pants, and I swear to you, I witnessed something between a miracle and a comedy sketch. There, against the fence, these two erupted into the most passionate, wild, downright Olympic-level romance session I've ever seen. They were moaning, groaning, yelling out like teenagers in heat. It was unreal. 10 minutes of madness. Then, total silence. They both collapsed in the grass like two exhausted gladiators. 30 minutes later, after a long recovery session, they finally stood up, brushed themselves off, and started hobbling back. I couldn't resist. I stepped out and said, "Excuse me, but that was incredible. What's your secret?" The old man, still out of breath, looked at me and said, "Well, 50 years ago that fence wasn't electrified."